I'm Olivia Bailey. I'm here with Lawrence Camp Bailey for the Remembering Benzie Oral History Project. So I'm going to be interviewing Mr. Bailey here about his time in service. So I'm just going to ask you a few simple questions to get you comfortable talking about yourself. Okay?
Sure.
So where were you born?
I was born in Honor, Michigan, but I was actually born on my grandfather's farm.
So who were your parents and what were their occupations?
My dad was Leon Bailey, and my mother was Luella Bailey. My mother was from Cross Village, Michigan, and my dad was from Honor.
Okay. What were their occupations?
My dad worked in the orchards, taking care of orchards and stuff like that for people. When he was younger, then he eventually retired from the state of Michigan at the fish hatchery in Honor, Michigan.
Who are your siblings and their names and genders?
The oldest one is my sister Murray, and she's the oldest, and the next is Leon, and then Russell, and then Vernon, who has passed away, and then me, Camp, and then Carolyn, and then Alan, and then Mike.
Did any of them serve in the military?
Yes, two of my other brothers served in the military.
Which ones?
My brother Leon served in the military. He was drafted like I was, and he served in Vietnam, actually at the same place for a while where I was, up out of Saigon, up country, a place called Quy Nhon. And he was there, and I served my last 6 months up there out of an 18-month tour. And my brother Russell was in Panama and Puerto Rico. He was in Puerto Rico when the Cuban crisis was in the full swing.
Okay. Did you attend college?
No.
And do you have any hobbies?
Yes. I'm a carpenter, so I always like doing woodworking, hunting, and I've been at it for some years, but I like pan for gold.
Did you hold any jobs before entering the service?
Yes, I worked for, I was a masonry laborer, and I worked for a guy named Eldon Beaton, who, when I told him I was leaving, told me when I come back, he would find a job for me, and he did, and I went back to work for him, so I was grateful for him.
Okay. So you were drafted into the Army. How old were you when you were drafted?
I was 19.
Okay. Can you recall when and how you found out?
Yeah, I walked down to, I knew something, I was going to get drafted, I knew that. And so you knew your time was getting close to being drafted. So I walked to the mailbox. And I've been doing it, going down to the mailbox because I knew my draft notice would be coming. I went down there, and halfway back I opened it up, and there it was. And this is the United States, the President of the United States was to inform you that you are inducted into the Armed Forces of the United States. And that was my draft notice.
What was your reaction at being drafted?
I knew it was coming, so you kind of prepare for it. Everybody that's going to get drafted, and you can enlist if you want to, but I decided I'll just write it till they draft me, and that's what it was, you know. So you were prepared for it, prepared for the draft, and it surprised me a little bit, but not much.
How did you prepare to being drafted?
Well, you're just expecting it. That's all you can. You're expected to be drafted. So to prepare for it, you knew your time was, your number was going to be drawn, and so that's how you prepared. You was just waiting for someday he was going to get drafted, and I did.
What were your family members and friends' reactions?
Well, I had a brother that was already drafted. The oldest brother, Leon, was drafted. He was in, and they weren't all that surprised. They knew what was coming too. Every family member knew that the parents and the brothers and sisters that someday your turn was coming to be drafted. You were in that age group, and that's how everybody reacted.
So what or who did you leave behind, like family or pets, when you left to serve?
Well, say that again?
What or who did you leave behind, like family or pets, when you left to serve?
Well, there's a family that I left behind, you know, my brothers and sisters and my mom and dad. And you had no idea where you was going to wind up. So it was just basic training, which was in Fort Knox, Kentucky, and that was to prepare you for military life and what it was going to be like for the next few years, to take orders and do things and do it right.
Do you know anybody else, like friends or people you went to school with that served in Vietnam?
Oh yes, a lot of kids I went to school with served in Vietnam. A lot of them. Yep, I seen three that I went to school with that I seen in Vietnam. Yep.
And you mentioned you're Native American.
Yes.
Do you know any other Native Americans that were drafted as well?
The only one from here was my cousin, volunteered for the draft, Warren Bailey. He volunteered because he wanted to go in with me. So he was the only other Native American from here that I knew got drafted. And I knew another Native American in Vietnam was from, I believe he's from Oklahoma. Nice guy.
What type of training did you have?
Well, basic training was for to get you used to military life, to take orders and to march, and a lot of shooting with rifles and stuff like that, but to get you used to the military. And then from the military, you went to your advanced individual training, and that's tell you where you was going. Okay.
So what did a typical day in training look like?
Well, in basic, it was up early in the morning, in roll call, and go to breakfast, and then come back, and then they had a dress code. This is what you are to carry that day, and you're supposed to have that with you. And then you went to where you was going to shoot rifles and learn how to march and do everything in order. That could be your typical day. And if you don't mind, it went different once I got to Fort Polk, Louisiana, where I went to jungle infantry training. That was totally different. That was a different training, a very harsh training. And it wasn't easy. It was tough. But and once I got to Louisiana, they told you the day you arrived, you're going to Vietnam. So you were prepared, you knew where you were going now. And the other guys went to different parts in the United States, become engineers, tank drivers, stuff like that. So they went to different places, but when I arrived in Fort Polk, Louisiana, I knew where I was going. They told you the day you arrived that you will be in Vietnam in 10 weeks.
So what type of things were you trained to do at Fort Polk?
Well, no marching like in basic. Totally different training. We was out in the field about 4 weeks where we learned how to do patrols, set up ambushes, and at least 3 to 4 weeks. I'm going to say pushing 4. We just lived out in the field and ate sea rations and did night patrols, day patrols, and basically learn how to eliminate somebody. That's what the training in Fort Polk, Louisiana was for. How to eliminate somebody and you stay alive. That's what it was for. Harsh training.
What is your most vivid memory of your time training?
The most vivid memory was the harshness of the training in Fort Polk, Louisiana. How they treated you. They broke you down to build you back up, to be ready. They wanted your mindset to change from when you arrived to, yeah, I'm ready to go to Vietnam. I want to go. I'm a little worried. I'm worried, but I want to go. But that's how they broke you down and then built you back up and trained your mind to say, yeah, I'm going, okay, there's no big deal. And that's what they did in Louisiana. But basically it was trained, how do you eliminate somebody and you stay alive?
So, if any, what was the best part of training?
In Kentucky or Louisiana?
Either one is fine.
Kentucky was fun. You met guys, and it was a good time. But Louisiana was totally different, totally different. In my 6 months of the military, when I was done with Louisiana, I wanted out of the United States. I was ready to go to Vietnam. Scared, not scared, but hesitant, yeah. But I wanted out of the United States. I'd had enough of it. It's hard to explain to people, but that's how it was. Yep.
Does any particular instructor stand out in your mind?
Yeah, there was a couple. Our platoon sergeant in Fort Polk, Louisiana was named Carmona. He was a nice guy. He was a Vietnam veteran, come on back, got shot in both of the legs. And he was a nice guy. And I liked him.
Did you qualify with any equipment?
Yep, I qualified with the M14 in basic training in Kentucky. Then in Louisiana, we qualified with the M16, the M16 rifle. But we also, in Louisiana, we shot a lot of different guns. I shot the M60 machine gun and grenade launcher and some other weapons that we shot. We didn't qualify, but we shot to get use from because they had them over in Vietnam.
What was training with that equipment like?
Pardon?
What was training with that equipment like?
Like the equipment we wore?
Or just any?
Well, in basic, it was just the light stuff. In Louisiana, we carried about a 10-pound pack. Every day, we carried that, and we wore steel pots, where in basic, we wore the helmet liner, what's set inside the steel pot. But the steel pot and that, you wore that the day you arrived till almost the day you left. That was everyday thing. And we did a lot of running. But at the end of the day, they call it the Airborne Shuffle. You could get in and you could go 5 miles. Many days went 5 miles without stopping because you got used to running.
So you mentioned on your biographical data sheet that your highest rank was as an E5 sergeant.
Yep.
How did you receive this promotion?
The guy ahead of us was a lieutenant colonel. And one day, after I extended, I was there a year around Saigon doing patrols and that stuff and guarding different buildings. And then up north, I went up north. That's where I extended for 6 months to Quin Yan. And I got called in. Someone said, hey, the lieutenant colonel wants to see you. And I said, oh boy, what's this, maybe change of orders or something, because I don't think I did anything wrong. But he went in, and I remember walking into him and presenting myself to him. And the first thing he did was he threw down those E5 stripes and said, here, have these on in the morning. And I said, yes, sir, I'll have them on in the morning. And I was very proud of myself that I made that rank. It's not easy to make rank, but it's stateside, but sometimes in a war zone, it's pretty easy because they lose a lot of people. So yeah, I was proud of myself.
What were your responsibilities as an E5 sergeant?
Well, the first thing I had is about 8 guys under me. So you had to know where your 8 guys were, keep track of them, know where they were at all times,
What was the hardest part of the military lifestyle for you to adapt to, and why do you think that was?
What was the hardest part? Maybe leaving home, leaving your family behind, but adapt to doing things now on your own with your parents. Or now you had to take orders and follow them, and adapt to all that stuff. Just plain military life, to adapt to military life.
What was the easiest part of the military lifestyle for you to adapt to, and why do you think that was?
There's nothing really easy to adapt to in the military life. It's when you come from, you meet all kinds of people, for one thing, and just to take orders was hard at the beginning to adapt to, and getting hollered at. You was never hollered at before till you got in there, and there was military's different life. You listen to them. You don't tell them. They tell you what to do. Then you do it. You have to follow orders.
When you were drafted, what were your thoughts on the Vietnam War and U.S. involvement?
Well, I seen pictures in, I believe it was Life or Look magazines of guys that were killed and stuff like that. So I had an idea of what was taking place over there. And I was over there when I think the biggest buildup of troops was in Vietnam. And it was different I'm kind of losing my train of thought here. I forgot the question. Would you ask it again?
When you were drafted, what were your thoughts on the Vietnam War and U.S. involvement?
Well, I know people were dying. That I knew people were dying. And again, it was to fight communism. That was the thing, to fight communism. And we went to a little country in Southeast Asia, and you didn't want communists. Communist was a big thing. You thought of what it was like if another country like China or Russia ruled you, what it was like, what it was going to be like if they ruled you. So you said, yeah, I'll go fight because I don't want this in the United States, because we have a free society here, and they don't. They live under a regime. And we don't. We're free to say what we want to say, where they aren't back then.
What were your thoughts when you first arrived in Vietnam, if you can recall? Yeah,
we arrived at the Tan Son Nhut Airport, Tan Son Nhut Air Base in Saigon. And I remember getting off. We went over on Pan Am airline, and to get off, and first of all to walk off the heat was the first thing. Like you went from it was hot in Louisiana in July. Well, when you arrived there, it was hotter. It was 100 degrees or above. And just to look at the buildings and to see Oriental people, Vietnamese people, that was the big thing. And the smell was different. Maybe not a good smell, but it was a different smell.
How did you adapt to the environment in Vietnam?
Well, because you're with military guys all the time, you pretty much lived the military. You lived the military life. See, and so, but to get to know the people, before we left in Louisiana, they give us a little book, and it gave us basic Vietnam words like how to say hello and stuff like that. And so, if you could say some of them words, it was a big thing over there. They liked it. And my hearing aid's going on, and they liked it if you could speak any Vietnamese. So that was always a good thing.
Did you learn a lot of Vietnamese?
Just some few words like that. And but even then, that was a big thing. But I seen an African American guy over there that could speak it good, and he was like a rock star, because these guys are coming over and they're speaking our language, you know. And a lot of them could speak English. It surprised you, the Vietnamese kids that could speak English. Yeah.
So on your biographical data sheet, you mentioned that you were part of the security force and special troops.
Mm-hmm.
So what are those, and what were your roles in those?
Well, we was a security force. We did a lot of guarding billets around Saigon, officers' billets and stuff like that, data processing, anything like that, wherever they needed you. And that's where they send you to be on guard. You might be in downtown Saigon, in the middle of nowhere, by yourself, guarding a building. And was it scary? Darn right it is scary. But you did it because that's what you were there for. That's what you're there for.
So you mentioned that one of your duties was as courier of highly classified information and currency. Can you tell me more about this?
Yes, this was after I extended and went up from Saigon, I went up to Quy Nhon. I didn't want to come home I could have came home for 6 months, but I didn't want to come home because I was going to push basic training troops in Fort Knox, Kentucky. And that's the last thing I wanted to do, because I felt, and this is how I felt that if I hollered at one of them guys and they holler at you, and I would holler at them. I mean, I would holler at them during training, and I didn't want to. I had a little guilt feeling if I hollered at that guy or made him do push-ups or something like that, or did something wrong, and I got on him, and he went to Vietnam and something happened to him. Then I would probably never find out, but I would feel guilty about it if I did find out. So that's one of the reasons I didn't want to come back. I said, I'll take my chances in Vietnam. Now, when I went to Quy Nhon and then become a courier, this wasn't an everyday job. It was just whenever you'd be out in the field or somewhere doing stuff, and they would call you. They say, Bailey, you're wanted back at the headquarters thing. And that lieutenant colonel that gave me my stripes, my E5 stripes, would say, okay, Bailey, you're going up to Da Nang tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. Be at the airport. Be here at 8 in the morning. Pick up this briefcase. I took the briefcase. I had a pistol that I carried with me on the side or around my chest here, and I handcuffed the briefcase to my wrist in the briefcase, and I carried it. And I can remember the lieutenant colonel saying, if something happens, if your plane crashes, you do not separate yourself from that briefcase. You must keep that briefcase. So, well, we never crashed, thank God. But then when I would go up to Da Nang or wherever I go, I was always met by a civilian, and I'm pretty sure he was a CIA guy. They're all dressed in civilian clothes. I never seen the same guy twice. And I would just sit in the airport. They'd give me a password. The lieutenant colonel would give me a password before I left. This is your password. Is what someone's going to ask a question, and this is the response. And so I was sitting in the airport, and I'd wait. And a lot of people, you'd see guys looking at you, because there you are with a handcuff and a briefcase handcuffed to you, and the pistol that you carried on your side or across your chest, and pretty soon you'd look and you could spot him right away. You knew he was a civilian, and he might walk around a little bit, but pretty soon eventually he'd come up to you. And he would introduce himself, and he knew my name because it was always on the tag. And then I might say, "Did it rain last night?" That might be my password. And he would say, "Oh, it rained like hell." I knew I had the right guy. So then I'd say, shake his hand. He'd say, "You ready to go?" I'd say, "Yup." So "You want to give me the briefcase here?" I'd say, "Nope. I'll give it to you back at wherever you're staying." So we'd get in his Jeep every time, get in his Jeep, go to where he was staying, and then I would take the key that I had hidden in my shoe, boot, or combat boots, or wherever I could hide the key, unlock it, keep my handcuffs, give him the briefcase, say, there you are. And he would say, "Okay, you are staying with a sergeant or somebody in this room down the hallway. You're staying there overnight at 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock in the morning. Be ready at 9:30. There'll be a Jeep to pick you up and take you back to the airport. You booked this flight. Your flight is booked," I should say, "and you go back to Quinyan." And that's what I did. But I never seen the same guy twice. But I knew one time I had, I think it was $36,000 to $38,000 that I had in that briefcase. Yeah. So, but it was, and I'd go to Saigon too, in other places. But it was a kind of a challenging job because I didn't like people, even though they're military, looking at you. But when you're carrying, why is that briefcase handcuffed to him? See, around your wrist. And I know one time I had, I think it's $36,000 that I had, and people had to be paid. When you go up to Da Nang in that area, all over, other tribes, people that were working for the CIA and stuff like that, had to be paid. That's how you get information, by paying different people. And that's what I assumed that money was for. Because you didn't take money and just, give it to somebody. You're paying for information. But I enjoyed it.
I'm just gonna interrupt you. So on the bottom of your jacket,
What?
the bottom
The bottom one?
of this thing came off.
Oh,
I'm just gonna put that on.
okay.
Sorry.
Moving too much. Okay.
You're okay.
Yeah.
Okay. You also mentioned that you were a security guard for the war room. What is the war room and what were you guarding?
This is back in Saigon, before I extended and went up to Quinyan. It was an Army operations room. And I sat at a desk, and I carried a .45 with me, and I also had a what they call a grease gun, the little machine gun that shot the same round the .45 did, in a drawer beside me. And I had a logbook. Anybody that had to get into this room had to be in that logbook. And if someone came and said, "I'm from I'd open my logbook up and say, "Your name is this," and if his name was there, I'd say, "Okay." And then I'd go and let him in. But and inside, the captain that ran it one night, and this I remember, and this is going to get to what the question was asked. He said, "Come on in. I want to." They had coffee in there. It was around the back area, and he said, "You can go get yourself a cup of coffee, and then come on in. I'll show you what we do." So I went got my coffee, and I went into this room, and it was 4 big walls, and there was I-Corps 1, 2, 3, and 4, and it was indirect lighting. That it was shadows, but the walls were all lit up. And he said, "See that right there, that flashing?" He said, "There's a firefight going on right now." He said, maybe while you're here or something, we'll find out if there's any casualties." And then we went to another wall, and he said, "See that right there? Something's happening right there right now. That's telling us something's going on." And it all come into this room where everything all over the I-Corps was taking place. Any fight that was going on They knew where I came into, and it was something else. I had a very high security clearance, and he told me that. He said, if you didn't have this, you wouldn't be here. And he told me too, the captain said, you know where you stay at? Over there in the Quonset hut? And I said, yeah. He said, well, he said, that's where you stay, but he said, you work for us. He said, you work for us. We requested you. So you work for us. You take orders from me. But I had to take orders from our company commander too. See, so I was a little kind of caught in between of what was really taking place. But that was the Army operations, the war room, yep. And big generals, all of them would come into that war room when they had big conference. And I seen Westmoreland, General Westmoreland. I seen General Green of the Marines. I seen the Air Force, the Navy. I seen Ellsworth Bunker, who was high up, and I can't remember what he was, Secretary of Defense or something. But I seen him, and I had a button there that when anytime a high-ranking general come in, I was to push that button. So and he would push a button in there that would unlock the door. And when that door opened up, the captain would be sitting straight ahead about 10 yards, and then he would be at attention. See, so to alert everybody in the war room that, okay, there's a general coming, or a high-ranking officer.
Okay, so you mentioned that you were in Vietnam during the Tet Offensive.
Yes.
Can you describe your experience during that?
My time was up on February 15th of '68, and on the 3rd, the Tet Offensive started the 1st of February. That's their New Year's. Ours is January 1st. Well, that's the Tet. That's when they started fighting all over. They hit all big towns, and then they hit little towns smaller on down. But Saigon was one of their big ones that they hit. But when I was up there, they hit Quy Nhon. We could hear the fighting. We could hear the rifle shooting. We was only about a mile and a half from downtown. So it was right close, and we could hear the explosions going off and stuff like that. And one thing that was in my mind, I was head of 8 or 9 guys. And I remember an E6 Spanish guy coming and saying, Bailey, you got all your men accounted for? And I said, yeah. And I said, damn, I didn't. So let me start a count. So I started to gather. The lights were off. We went with flashlights and stuff like that wherever we could get, if you could get a flashlight. And I counted my men, and I was missing 2 guys. I said, oh no. Well, these 2 guys were on a Tet when everybody's kind of alert. They were downtown having fun. And one of them come in about 2 o'clock in the morning, and I was so mad because I was responsible for him. I was so mad that I was happy to see him. That my madness went away. I was just happy to see him alive. And the other guy didn't come in till about 4, and I like to shot him. But I was so glad to see him, and that now I could count for all my men. But I was missing 2 guys, and they were downtown raising heck. And he told me his experience of how there was fighting right by him. And I was mad at him, but I was so happy to see him that he was alive. And I couldn't get mad. I was just glad to see he was alive. Because he was caught down there. He was caught down there for about 4 hours. Going from crawling on, he told me, on a lot of tin roofs. He said, I was crawling on them tin roofs, Sergeant, and I was doing this and hiking and running and hiking. And then he said, finally I got by the end of the airport, and that's when I knew I could make it back safe. So there he was, and I was happy to see him, damn happy. But now, back to the Tet Offensive. Then from Quy Nhon, I flew to Saigon. At the Tan Son Nhut Air Base, and where I filled sandbags at the end of the Tan Son Nhut Air Base, there was fighting going on. And there were sky raiders that were that were diving and shooting a really neat plane, a prop plane, and shooting, and we could watch tracers going back up at those planes as they were diving and shooting, and then he would get out of the way and here'd come another one, and you watch tracers go back, and I filled sandbags right there where that fighting was taking place. And then then from there, they took 9 of us and took us downtown 5 blocks beyond the U.S. Embassy, and the embassy was hit on the 1st of February, and we lost some Marines there. But I was 5 blocks deeper into Saigon, 9 of us, in no man's land. There was nothing. There was nobody. Only some Vietnamese guarding at a bunker. And we could see them, and once in a while kind of wave at them. But that's what it was. We were, they gave us sea rations for 9 days and said, we'll see ya. Don't get in trouble. And they left. The MPs that took us down left us, and we had no radio, nothing to contact anybody. And there we stayed. At nighttime, it lit up. The town, there was shooting going on all over. And it was a strange feeling. We was really alert at nighttime. Daytime, we could get a little rest. But nighttime, because the night belonged to them. They loved the nighttime. That's when they did their dirty work. But I was beyond the U.S. Embassy, 5 blocks beyond the U.S. Embassy, on 1 block off the main street called Tudo Street. And we was in a motel room. And that's why we went there to this day. I will never know. And if someone could tell me, please, let me know why they took us down there, because I want to know.
What were your thoughts and feelings during that time?
Your thoughts and fears were your thoughts. You're alone. You got 9 guys. You got so much ammunition. You got sea rations for 8 days. And one of the things that was on my mind: what if this goes longer? What if this goes longer and we start running out of food? So we started rationing food the first day. There was 2 E6s and I was an E5. And I told E6, we got to set up how we can take this food, because we can't gobble it. Because we don't know if we're going to be here. They said in 6 or 7 days they're going to come and get us, but they might not be able to get down here because there's nobody around. There's nothing. The streets are bare. So we started rationing the food right from that first day. And then like I said, the thoughts of at nighttime, everything taking place, what could happen. I can remember going back to the Tonson Air Base. The MPs come and picked us up on the 8th or 9th day, 7th day, somewhere in there. And we had all of our stuff ready. Our sea ration cans, we all smashed and put into a baggie or a container, because we didn't want to, if the VC got them, we didn't want them to use them in explosives and stuff like that. But here come the MPs, and come on, get loaded, get in this Jeeps. And I could fire the M60 machine gun, so I was in the last Jeep, and I was a machine gunner. And I can remember there's MPs telling us, and this is really awakening. He said, if something happens to any of these Jeeps, we're not turning around and coming back, because if something happens, we're going to all lose our lives. So all the way back to the Tonson Air Base, and I was a machine gunner in the back, looking back and looking sideways and a little bit in front too. We passed one building that had one security guard on front in a bunker, and he waved at us. I've seen no Vietnamese. I've seen nobody but the 9 guys and the guards, Jeep drivers that took us back to the Tonson Air Base. And then they told us, when we get near the air base, there's fighting going on right at the air base, so be ready at the entrance. And we was ready. Of course, I was ready with the M60 machine gun. I wanted to light it up, as they say. I was ready to fire it. But nothing was taking place when we went in. We had to go through a maze to get in. Like, remember them Jeeps rocking and stuff like that. So, but that was a different feeling, saying, if something happens to one of the Jeeps, we're going to keep on going, because if we come back, we'll all lose our lives. There's only probably 15 of us in. But that's and Saigon was a huge city with 1.5 million people, and you didn't see a Vietnamese on the street. You didn't see nothing. Nothing. It was dead. I seen a lot of shot up buildings that look like in Traverse City, a town close to us, there's a Park Place building. A lot of buildings look like that. And there's a lot of buildings that were shot up and burned out vehicles and shot up vehicles and stuff like that. And then I got back to the Townsend Air Base and I felt good.
What kinds of friendships and camaraderie did you form while serving, and with whom?
I got along with everybody. African Americans, Spanish, Puerto Ricans, whites. I got along with everybody. I fit in well with every group because of my personality. And you form naturally close. So you don't want to get super close, because if something happens to somebody, you want to be close, but you don't want to, get really too close, because something can happen to him. And I can remember a Puerto Rican friend of mine from Puerto Rico, and after about 30 years, we finally made contact, and it was great. It was on his birthday. And I called him. He worked for Ford Motor Company, and they called me, a secretary called me, and asked me who I was and this, the ups. She said, "Did you was Juan Hernandez Augusto?" And I said, "Yes." And she said, "Well, tomorrow's his birthday, and we want to surprise him with you calling him on his birthday." So I did, and it was great to hear his voice,
Are you still in contact with any of the other people you met?
Guys I went to school with. That right around Honor, Michigan, in other areas around here that I know. That a couple of them I seen over there. A couple of us went to basic training together, and I know them. Rick Worm and I went to basic training. And my cousin Warren, and Ed Fay, those guys I still see. Yeah, Eric Anderson. Yeah.
How did you stay in touch with friends and family?
Mostly with family, just it was letters. Letters were about 2 weeks behind time. So I can remember my parents sending me the little paper here, and it would be about 2 weeks behind. And those letters, you didn't get the letter in 3 days. It took a long time to get a letter.
Did you ever have time off duty?
I could have went on an R&R, but I didn't want to. I said no. I just stayed and did what they told me to do. I could have went for a week, but didn't interest me. I could have went to Australia, Japan, other places, but I said, nah, I'll stay.
Do you recall any particularly humorous or unusual events?
No, not really. It was always quick humor that was, like even today here, where you joke, if you're on a job and you joke with somebody and jab them and stuff like that. That's what it was. And you got to remember, I'm going back 50-some years. And it's hard to put it all together and remember, oh, yeah. But yeah, you had fun. You can remember having fun with guys. I can. Well, I'll tell you. Yeah, one thing I do remember. If we'd always in Saigon, we'd always see if someone had a bottle of whiskey. We'd say, "Anybody got a bottle?" And someone would say, "Yeah, I got one." Well, get it out. Let's have some. There'd be maybe 8, 10 of us in a circle. Begin in a circle, and he said, "But you got to pay it back." And we say, "We'll buy you another bottle. Break that bottle out. Let's have it." And so what we would do would get in that circle and get chanting, and then clapping your hands and stomping your feet, and then you'd each take a sip. You couldn't take a big sip. You just took a little one and passed it all the way around till it went dry. Then it was done. But I can remember doing that and stomping, and guys would say things, and then you'd laugh at that. But it took you out of what you were doing into for 5 minutes of fun time.
Was there anything you did for good luck?
For good luck? No, just try to be what you was taught, and to don't get yourself in trouble. Don't get yourself in trouble. Don't do something that's ridiculous that could get you put a court martial or something like that. Don't get crazy. Keep yourself together, organize.
What was the best part of your service experience?
Getting out of the best part was coming home from basic training, getting after 10 weeks down there in Kentucky, and then after 10 weeks in Fort Polk, Louisiana, coming home for 11 days or something like that. But those were the best parts, coming home, getting out, knowing that part of your military career was done.
How did your wartime experience change you?
My thinking of always being alert, of listening to, never, if someone told me something once, I said, there's another side to that story. Let me find out the other side, if I could. Which pretty much I did a lot. Or you figure it out for yourself. And just never believe one thing. That's what the military, that's what Vietnam taught me. To always be alert. I was always alert. Even today, you're alert all the time after coming back from a war zone. There's a lot of flashbacks you have of the smell of diesel fuel. I smell diesel fuel, I might as well be 12,000 miles from home. Just like that. Thunder, like that. You can hear, I was over there in 66, 67. And the Rolling Thunder, I believe, started. And I listened to bombing, and I could see the flashings on the horizon. And it went on for hours. And you wonder, what is happening down below? But it was continuous. Those things you don't walk away from. You constantly got them.
Do you recall the day service ended? Where were you when your service ended?
My service ended in New Jersey, Fort Dix, New Jersey. I remember flying in there early in the morning on February. I had to be out by February 15th. If you went over February 15th at midnight, you got another month's pay coming. So they wanted you out, and my pay then was $355 a month. And so they wanted you out because they didn't want to pay you that. But that's where I got out of. Me and another guy got out of. We was the last. As we, can I just back up a little bit? Okay, as we left Vietnam, and we went to the Philippines, Clark Air Base in the Philippines. We went to Wake Island, Hawaii. When we lived in the United States in Oakland, California, they diverted us to the other side of the airport because there was demonstrations going on over there, and they didn't want us to get off there because we knew there'd be trouble. So they took us to another place, and that's where we got out of because was able to go inside the air terminal because there was demonstrations going on. And then we went to Fort Dix, New Jersey, and then at nighttime, we left some guys in Oakland. Then we headed to Fort Dix, and it was about 18 degrees, and we just had on our khaki short sleeve jackets. So they had heated buses that they put us on right away, the Air Force. And we went to our barracks, and they issued us some little jacket. But one thing I remember getting out, there's two of us that our orders didn't come down, and we was going on, I don't know, around 10:30, 11 o'clock that night. The only two of us sitting in this barracks with a mass of people, and everybody's going, getting out, but me and him are sitting there. Pretty soon there we are, sitting on a bunk, talking, ready to go. And finally here come a runner, said, okay, they got your pay ready. So we went there and they paid us, and they said there's a taxi waiting for you. So we got paid, mustering out pay, went to the taxi, and he said, where do you want to go? He said, where's the closest airport? And that was in, I think he said Newark, New Jersey, and he took us there. And we went there and got our flight, our tickets, and I was coming back to Michigan and coming home. And the one thing I remember I did, an officer, not an officer, another sergeant, give me new fatigues to put on. And because we had been wearing ours for 24 hours in a sweaty plane. And I asked him if I could have smaller pants. I said, these pants are baggy on me. I weighed 96 pounds or something. He said, oh, those fit you perfect. I said, no, they're baggy. He said, you're getting out anyway. He said, that's what I'm going to give you. And I looked like a clown. So when I got to the airport, the civilian airport, when I was leaving after he was paid, I told the guy, and he was from Grand Rapids, and I went to we call it the latrine, the bathroom, and I said, come on, I'll show you what I'm going to do. I went and emptied my duffel bag, and I found my wrinkled civilian clothes, and I put them on, and I took that Army uniform, and I threw it in the trash. I said, if this is how you're going to treat me, after what I did, 18 months, and you can't even give me a pair of pants that look good, I'm not wearing these damn things home. And I threw them in the trash and put on my wrinkled civilian clothes, and I said, now I'm ready to go home. And that's how I come home.
What was your reaction when you found out your service was going to end?
My what?
What was your reaction when you found out that your service was ending?
I was happy. You're on call for, I think, 4 years. So you leave it, but you still, if they need you, they will call you. I didn't have to go to summer camp for 2 weeks. My brother had to go, the one I was in Vietnam, because I think he only spent not much time over there, a couple months, 3 months or something. But I spent 18 months, so I didn't have to go to Wisconsin, to Camp McCoy, where they send you for Army Reserves. And I didn't have to go, but I was still on call for 4 years.
When your service ended, did you return home?
Yes. I was met in Traverse City by 2 sisters and a brother, and walked off that airplane at nighttime, and they met me, and there was nothing. It was just, there they were. And it's so different from my time when they started these other conflicts of celebrations and parades. There was nothing. There was no parade. There was nothing. They were against us. They demonstrated against us. That's why all them riots and stuff took place back in the 60s and 70s. It was against a soldier. No one come up and shook your hand. No one come and said anything to you. If they did, it was going to be negative anyway. So you didn't want to run into anybody. So you laid low. See? You just didn't seen some guys that you know and talk a little bit and come home, and the biggest surprise with me was coming home, and at 6:30 at night, I made sure I watched the TV to see what was happening in Vietnam and find out, 25 guys were killed today. And then take a ride into Honor, and I didn't go to the bar right away, but finally I went to the bar after a while and see people having a hell of a time. They're celebrating and fun and drinking. I'm saying, you know what? Some guys died today. Maybe a dozen guys died today in Vietnam. And you guys are celebrating. I couldn't put that together. That was strange for me.
So how did you readjust to civilian life?
Went back to work, was off, stayed home for about 4 or 5 weeks. Finally went and seen this gentleman that offered me my job back, Eldon Beaton, and asked him, and he said, I'll find work for you somewhere here. And he found work for me, and I went back to work. That was the best thing to do, was to get back then in society. You have to take care of yourself too. I feel some guys today, that it's hard to say this, but some guys today like I said, they come home, they got parades, they got everything. We come home to nothing. But we adjusted, and we went on, and we adjusted ourselves. Where today they sometimes, maybe not all of them, but few of them need help or something. I didn't get any support till about maybe 10 years ago. I'm 75 now. See? But some of these young guys are coming back and snap of your finger, you got support. See? We didn't have it. It wasn't there. I guess that's the best way I can put it without being negative about military.
So is there any other ways that service changed you?
Yes, it makes me try to keep things in order. Know what my responsibilities are. Know what I'm going to do. Today I can, by this afternoon I can tell you I'll have my tomorrow plan. And then there's a lot of things that happen that you can't do this. I may be going somewhere, even now, and I know I'm going to do this, and then someone will call me, hey, can you come and help me? And so you turn around and go help them. But your day's already planned. By tonight I'll have my plan for tomorrow, what I'm going to do. Yep, so it changed me big time, just to be alert, and to worry about people, to worry about other people. I've seen a country where these people were a third world country where they had nothing. And as a young kid, I can remember growing up sometimes where we had nothing, without a food. And so today, I make sure that if I can help somebody, I'm going to help somebody. I'm going to help them. And I do it a lot because that's who I am, and it's what the military made me as a person. Was the military a negative thing? Some, but it did more good for me than it did being on the negative side. It done way more good for me. It gave me discipline, where you know what you're doing, take care of yourself, take care of your friends, don't be doing foolish things. You know?
On your biographical data sheet, you mentioned that you made many friends from different cultural backgrounds. Can you tell me about some of these people?
Yeah. Well, I told you about Juan Hernandez Augusto from Puerto Rico. He was a good friend of mine. He's passed away now. A guy that I met at the induction center in Detroit named Raymond Bugby. He lived in Portland, Michigan. He passed away. Me and him were together 18 months. We did everything together. We was good friends, and just other guys that I knew from different parts of the country. You can make friends, but remember, you're not going to make friends long. Raymond Bugby from Portland, Michigan, I was surprised that we was together 18 months. We could have spent a full 2 years, but I didn't want to come back and push basic training troops in Fort Knox, Kentucky, and he did. So that's why I extended. That's where we broke up. Was it a good breakup as friends? No. It was name calling and swearing at each other because I was going to stay over there and he was coming home, and I didn't want to come home and push basic training troops.
How have these people changed or affected your life?
You mean the people that I knew? Well, I'll use Raymond Bugby as, well, I can use Juan Hernandez Augusto too, but Raymond Bugby was, I called him a couple times. He was, he talked a little bit the first time, and the next 2 times I called him, he was very negative, like I want to cut this conversation short. And I wanted to see him, and but that affected me a little bit. I wanted to see him. We were friends like brothers for 18 months. Then because I didn't come back to Fort Knox, Kentucky to push base training troops and stayed over there, it broke our friendship up. It's very negative. And then, but Juan Hernandez Augusto, it was good to call him on his birthday and talk to him, and we laughed and talked for an hour. Yeah, but Bugby from Portland, Michigan, it was maybe 15 minutes at the very most. So.
How did service affect the way you relate to others?
Respect others. Learn how to other people that give you respect, you give them respect back. There's never 100% on that, but you can, I respect people, but if they don't respect me, I don't go out of my way to say, come on, we got to be friends. No, I don't do that. If they don't want to respect me, that's fine. That's, they got whatever's bothering them, that's fine.
Did you join a veteran organization?
Yes, I did. I joined DAV, Disabled American Veterans, a guy that's the head of our VA system here in Benzie County, named Bob Roloff. He got me and my brother that was in the military, my brother Russell, and we we're life members of the DAV, Disabled American Veterans. I'm proud of that.
Have you met any veterans from those organizations that you've become friends with or could relate to?
Yeah, I got a couple guys from down a town called Arcadia, named Norman McCary, who I went to school with, and he was in Vietnam, did 3 tours of duty, and a guy named Jim March, and I met him through the VA organization in Traverse City, and he was a Vietnam veteran. So yeah, they're good friends.
Do you attend reunions?
No. No, military reunions, of course, is what you're talking about? Yeah, because our group was so small. When I got to our group, there was only 39 guys in it. That was it. There was nothing like 500 guys or 1,000 guys in the big companies. We was just a small little group of guys over here on the side.
What are some of the awards and medals that you received?
Well, I wrote them down. I think I wrote some down there.
Yeah. You had honorable discharge.
Yep.
Army Good Conduct Medal.
Yep.
National Defense Service Medal.
Yep.
Vietnam Service Medal.
Yep.
RVN Gallantry Cross.
Yep, a Gallantry Cross. I'm proud of that one. I'm proud of all my medals, but I'm proud of that one that I got from the Vietnam government, which isn't the Vietnam government now, but I have that medal, and I can't find it right now. I've been looking for it, but I have it, and I was glad when they sent it to me. I was really surprised, but I guess after 18 months over there, they felt I deserved something, so I'm proud of it.
Did you have to meet any requirements to receive that medal?
I don't know what the Vietnamese requirements were. You can get them as unit citations if your unit gets it. If there's 500 guys in your unit, everybody gets it. This was an individual one.
So what are some other life lessons that you learned from your military service?
Life lessons. Try to take care of yourself, groom yourself, if you had to in the military, and to, don't go any place where you see some military guys not dressed well, and you always make sure that wherever you go, if you're going to wear a hat, a Vietnam hat, or show your military, to groom yourself and just take care of yourself and do things right and treat people with respect.
How has your military service impacted your feelings about war and the military in general?
I've said this before and I'll say it again. If I had a daughter and she was drafted back in 1966, when I was drafted, and they said you're going to go to Vietnam, and there's over 58,000 guys were killed over Vietnam, me and my daughter would not go. I would not give up my only child for a war that I will never say we lost the war, but we didn't have leadership in the United States, in Vietnam, to fight that kind of war. When you have to call to do something, an operation back to the United States to do it, you're not fighting a war. You're playing a war game. And that isn't how you fight a war. And we didn't have that. We didn't have that.
What message would you like to leave for future generations who will view or hear this interview?
Remember that, and this is the truth, that war is hell. There's no glory in war. So when anybody steps up and say, hey, let's go to war, be damn well sure you're going to a war that you're going to walk away the winner. Don't go to a war just to fight the war. And there's ways, plenty of ways of winning a war. But there is no glory in war. Don't get in a war if you're not going to fight it to the fullest. And the fullest is to win.
So I have a few more questions.
Yep.
But I just want to say thank you so much for taking your time and sitting down for this interview. And thank you for your service.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
It was so interesting to hear your story, and I loved hearing it. So we'll just get on with these last few questions.
All right.
Is there anything you would like to add that we have not covered in this interview?
There's a lot of things. You could go for a long time discussing things, but and we'll go back to the carrying that money. And I remember my brother coming home and saying, "You won't believe how well the what I want to say, the help me with the word, intelligence reports. You get a intelligent report come in, okay, hey, you guys don't leave the area. You stay right close. Okay, you're confined to your barracks. Get your stuff on. Something's going to happen at 1 o'clock or midnight or 1:30. And maybe say 1 o'clock, maybe 1:30 or 10 after 1, nothing's happened. You're sitting on your bunk, your rifle ready to go. Flat jackets, everything. Guys are whispering, some guys whispering. Well, nothing's taken place, nothing yet. And maybe 11 minutes after, you hear that first mortar round come in, that whoop, and you know you're under a mortar attack. Get to your places where you're supposed to be and away you went. And that costs money. That's where carrying that money, you have to pay for that type of, then the Vietnamese people were the people that were giving us that. I assume, I'm pretty sure I'm right on that. So you have to pay for that, all that. It has a price.
Is there anything you've always wanted to share about your service or veteran experience that you never have?
Yeah, I will share one thing. This happened when I was in Saigon, when we were downtown Saigon with some 9 guys. I'd been in Saigon. I'd spent a year around there in Saigon, out to Benoit doing patrols. But when we got down in that motel, I knew the next street up was Tudo Street, was the main street, because I'd actually walked it. And so we was there about 4 days. And the 2 E6s, and I was in E5, and the rest were E4s and below, and we all got along good. But I said, I know there's military barracks that were military, with some military up around the corner and around some other streets. And maybe not smart on my part, but I said, I'm going to go see. And they said, how are you going? I said, I'm going to put on my civilian clothes, because I knew how civilians that were in Vietnam working dressed, and they wore civilian clothes. So I put on civilian clothes, and I put on some flip-flops. And I opened the door down below on the bottom where the Vietnamese guarded down below, and I snuck out, and it was in the daytime, and I can remember looking at about 200 yards away were the Arvin guards, and I finally got them to notice me so I could wave, and they seen me, and they waved. And I snuck across the street, and I went down that side street, sneaking in and out of buildings, in and out, doorways, sneaking, made a right, kept on going, and finally I came to where there's sandbags in front. There's no American guard, just sandbags and barrels full of cement. And so I said, I'm going to go over there and see if anybody's in there. So I snuck across the street and knocked on the metal door, kept knocking. Pretty soon it opened up, and there's some Vietnamese. And they really looked surprised. And I said, any Americans? They said, no Americans, no Americans. I said, Americans down there? No Americans. Americans all gone, all gone. And so I stood there and I said, damn, I got to get back now. So I stood there a little while, a couple of minutes, and I said, okay. So I backtracked myself, went back, alleyways, back, snuck back across, knocked on the door, the Vietnamese opened up, and I came, and I went up on the second floor and told them sergeants up there, I said, we are it. I thought there'd be some Americans somewhere down on the other streets. I said, there's nobody. We are alone. And so whether that was good or bad, whether something could have happened to me, could something happen to me? Of course. Of course, I could have got shot easy. But curiosity, I guess, got the best of me, and I had to step out of bounds. And I stepped out of bounds, and I went and did that. You're not many people I've told that to, because I don't know if it was good or bad. So I did. It's the first time I'm saying it. So.
Well, I appreciate that.
Yep.
Thank you for sharing
Yep.
that. What would you like people to know or remember from your story?
That I was a Vietnam veteran. I did my time. I didn't. Uncle Sam, back then, as they called him, drafted me. And he took me for 2 years, and I did it. I did my service. I'm proud. I'm a proud veteran. I'm proud of the other veterans that served their country, that stepped up. Whether you were drafted or enlisted, it doesn't matter. You served your country. Even if you was in the Reserve or National Guard, you still served your country. Merchant Marine, same thing. They still served their country. And that's the thing that I am proud of, that I served, and the other people that I know served their country. That I'm proud of.
Is there anything else we should talk about that we haven't covered?
I had a lot of nightmares. I still have them today, but not as many. I can be, there's a place towards Traverse City called Chum's Corners. I had dreams of fighting up there at Chum's Corners, fighting the Viet Cong up there. You have dreams, you have a lot of nightmares. But they're slowly, as you get older, getting away from them. But say 10 years ago, they were all the time. You lived with it. You just made adjustments. You got up, sat, maybe sweated a little bit, got a drink of water, and went back to bed. But it was there. And then the next morning you say, yeah, that's right, I did dream about that. Yeah. So, yeah. That was one of the big things with the dreams, and adjusting to life back here, and raising a family, and having a house, and having some good brothers and sisters, and some great nieces.
What do you wish more people knew about veterans?
Well, I think today people have got more on board. Back in the 60s, they didn't want to know nothing about veterans when I come home. Today they're all on board, and they want to know. veterans, because they have a lot of things for veterans. We have a lot of organizations for veterans, and so that's what they, people want to know about that. In fact, one of the things when I talked about Bob Roloff, I helped a lot with a Veterans Memorial we got down here in Benzonia. And one thing I want to say that about that, the funding for that, a lot of the money comes through the Grand Traverse Band of Chippewa and Ottawa Indians in Peshabe Town, Michigan. And I'm proud of that. They helped us. We asked them, and they stepped up and helped us. And I'm proud of that. And I was part of it, being a Native American.
That's awesome. That's all the questions I have today, but I just want to say again, thank you so much.
Well, thank you for interviewing me. I appreciate it.
And thank you again for your service.
Yep, thank you.
Do you have any questions for me?
Nope, I think you did a tremendous job. I'm very proud of you.
Thank you.
Very proud of you.
All right, well, that's all then.
All right, thank you.